Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
And thank you for being with us on this Monday edition of the show. So much to do over the next 60 minutes, a weekend of sports to recap. I got a few friends jumping in to help me do that. Sam Yarnell, unfortunately, is off today, not by choice, but because of snowpocalypse going on, this bomb cyclone in the Northeast. Knocked out his power in Jersey. They got to get better power line infrastructure, I guess, over there, Sam. So Sam not with us today, but a whole bunch of other people are. Jerry Bonkowski later in the show, EssentiallySports.com on NASCAR. Tyler Reddick winning for the second straight week to start the NASCAR season. Wins in Daytona, wins in Atlanta yesterday. Michael Jordan in 23XI Racing on a huge high right now. There is that to talk about. Bill Bender will be here from the Sporting News, who does a terrific job on all things college hoops. We'll get some thoughts with him on another wild week in college basketball. Duke beating Michigan yesterday, or over the weekend rather, sending some huge shockwaves through the sport. We'll get his thoughts on what all that means. Does it really mean anything? They're probably both still number one seeds. We'll talk about that. I want to get his thoughts on the Mick Cronin stuff from last week as well, and what's going on with his bracketology. Dennis Bernstein will join me coming up in 10 minutes to talk about hockey. I want to get his thoughts on sort of the landscape around the NHL coming out of this Olympics that we're about to get into here in the big story. There is that to talk about. And to finish the show today, something a little personal to me that we'll get into a little later on. It has absolutely nothing to do with sports. That's about as much as I want to say about it, because I think it's really important for anybody who has suffered loss. And I'll explain it coming up a little later on in the big story. I promise you won't want to miss it. But we start things out as we always do on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. It's time for the big story. And the big story today, well, it's Jack Hughes. The golden goal for Jack Hughes as Team USA defeats Canada 2-1 in overtime. 3-on-3 hockey. You knew it wasn't going to last very long if you had watched this game and the way these two teams were going at it. But Jack Hughes, the game-winning goal for Team USA as they win their first gold medal since 1980. Mike Eruzione all over the place on the NBC broadcast yesterday. Now he's got somebody he can share an experience of winning a gold medal for USA Hockey. Jack Hughes, the golden goal, as I said. His brother Quinn Hughes, and a lot of people are already going to forget this, but he had the goal to win the semifinal game against Sweden. So you had Quinn Hughes win the semifinal game, Jack Hughes win the championship game to take the gold medal, and Team USA celebrates, and rightfully so, after such an amazing championship game against Canada. And I'll tell you another thing about this game that I think was very sort of telling was just how competitive, the speed and ferocity with which this particular game was played was unlike any hockey game I've ever watched. And I want to get Dennis Bernstein's thoughts on that when he joins us coming up, because I've watched NHL hockey. I've watched it at the highest level with the Stanley Cup. This was just something completely different. Like, there's NHL hockey, and then there was this international high-level hockey, and everything this game provided. Edge-of-your-seat drama. I mean, Canada just peppering Connor Hellebuyck for 60 minutes plus in this game, and him giving up just one goal with 41 saves. And to me, as much as Jack Hughes is going to be remembered for the golden goal, the story to me is Connor Hellebuyck. They're not even sniffing a win in this gold medal game without Connor Hellebuyck. And I know during the broadcast, a lot of the guys are out there talking about, if these teams play 7 times, it's 4-3, it's a 7-game series. If they played 9 times, it's a 9-game series. I'm not buying it. Canada looked like the better team or the better group of players to me, obviously they weren't the better team on this day. But in a one-game situation, a goalie can stand on his head. And Bennington didn't play bad in net for Canada. It was just Connor Hellebuyck made one more save at the end of the day, but he made so many saves throughout this entire game. The 5-on-3 power play, the 5-on-4 power play. I mean, Canada had its opportunities in this game to come away with a win, and it just didn't happen. And look, they're going to lament this. They'll be back in 4 years, and they'll probably be the favorites again when it comes to the Olympics, because they are that good. But what a weekend. I mean, between USA women's hockey winning last Thursday and then the men winning on Sunday morning, just a terrific moment for USA hockey, and really a great point to just where they are right now in the hockey universe. Terrific. Now we'll get back to the NHL, and we'll talk about that with Dennis Bernstein coming up in a few minutes. All right. From the hockey to something I never talk about on this show, and that's bowling. Because something happened yesterday. I get it. It's not the Olympics. It's not a gold medal. But if I don't mention it now, it'll never get mentioned in this show because we're going to run out of time to talk about it. And you won't see it all over your big sports talk shows. But Brandon Bonta, bowling in his first TV event, a rookie on the PBA Tour, did something amazing yesterday. You got to see it. Pretty amazing stuff. You're bowling in your first TV event, and the kid throws a perfect game. I mean, are you serious? In the championship match, he throws a perfect game. It just doesn't happen that way. I mean, we always talk about the all-time, it's only going downhill from here. It can't possibly get better for Brandon Bonta. First event on TV, you beat the best player in the world in EJ Tackett, you throw a perfect game, and you win a major. I don't care if you're not a bowling fan. That is sick. It doesn't happen that way in sports. Brandon Bonta, trust me, it's not supposed to be that easy. Coming back, talk about the Olympics. Our man Dennis Bernstein is here. All right, we talked about it in the big story, and now let's bring in our good friend, Dennis Bernstein, to join us to talk about USA men's hockey winning gold for the first time since 1980. I was 3 years old. No, I might have even been 2. Anyway, Dennis Bernstein, thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio, joins us on the show to talk hockey. We usually talk NHL, and we'll slip in a little bit of that on the back end of this conversation. But I want to start with what we saw. What do you? I'm curious, just from a nostalgia point of view. You're a little older than me, just a little. How does this one make you feel versus 1980?
This one's a bigger stage. The other one was on tape delay, right? I was in Killington, Vermont at a ski lodge. I am a bit older than you. This is bigger. It's not as big an upset because there's no margins anymore. Like with all these teams, there's no margins to separate these teams anymore. Like I called this game at the beginning I called this 2 weeks ago. Like US is going to win in overtime. Like there's no margins anymore. It's a bigger stage. It's a more natural. There's more media. There's more everything, right? But that one was a bigger upset. That upset never should have happened. That Russian team was incredible. But because the stage is bigger, this is more impactful. This will get more kids playing hockey. So 20 years from now, when there's the next Macklin celebrity, he's going to remember Macklin playing in this game. The impact is I think it's far greater now than what we had in 1980 because of media, because of exposure.
I'm going to ask one of those questions that it might drive you nuts. Maybe you'll play along and you'll be fine with it. But when all is said and done, is this gold medal game the game we remember because of Connor Hellebuck, or is it the game we remember because of Jack Hughes?
I think it's the entire team. I don't think it's either one. I think to me, it's the celebration afterwards.
Yeah,
that got to me with Johnny Gaudreau's kids on the ice. That's what I'll remember. And I'll remember Connor Hellebuck saying, "People don't know goaltending. Like, people don't understand my game." I remember Vin Trocheck saying, "Yeah, we read the stuff. Me and JT Miller shouldn't have been on the team, but we killed the 5-on-3." Like, I'll remember that. I remember how much it means to. I remember that despite your politics, all these guys that won talked about how they loved their country and how important it was and how great it was to be an American. And these days, to hear that, I don't care what your leanings are. Like, that's what resonates with me. So, Jason, I don't think it's either player. I think it's the whole collective, right? And I think it's the fact that they hadn't won since 1980. Like, I think the moment is much bigger than any individual player. So when I remember this, I'll remember, the flags on the ice. I remember probably Jack scoring the goal because he's missing a tooth. He's had a terrible season. Like, he cut open his wrist or his hand in some party where after he shouldn't have been there or whatever. So maybe a little bit more for Jack. But I just think that's just the whole collective of how that game laid up. That's what I'll remember the most.
I mean, all the I don't want to call it extraneous because I think that's diminishing what you said, and that's not my intent. But from the game perspective, it's Connor Hellebuck for me. It just has to be. They're not. I mean, he was under fire. With the exception of the first few minutes of the game, he was under fire the entire game. I mean, he was just getting peppered with shots in that game. And I'll tell you the other thing that stood out to me. And before Brian Boucher said it on the broadcast, I had already been thinking, and I was literally about to type it out. And then he said it during the broadcast, and I didn't type it out. And Mike Tirico followed up on it at halftime. And by the way, the broadcast of this game was phenomenal.
Incredible. The close by Tirico.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah,
he's the best.
But Kenny was great. I was texting with him this morning.
Yeah.
Kenny was fantastic. But what really stood out to me, and Brian Boucher said this, I've never seen, and the NHL's fast. If you go to a game and see it live, it's really fast.
Going. Yeah.
It looked like the game was being played at speed and a half.
Incredible.
It was so fast.
Agreed.
The way these guys were going up and down the ice. And maybe it is the ice dimensions and all that. But have you ever seen anything?
Feet, Jason. It's not that much. That's not that impactful. And you're right. That was played at warp speed. Are you kidding me? That's like Star Trek stuff. Yeah, it's amazing how these players play, like how they play. And that's the difference between now and 1980. You watch those videos. First of all, those were college kids playing, right? Who never should have beat the Russians. Right? These are pros who are elite, and the equipment's better. They're in better shape. Jason, U.S. team today would beat that U.S. team in 1980s 10-0. Let's be real. Like, they would. There's no comparison. But you're right. The game, the way it was played, and Four Nations was a little bit different because it was more physical. But you saw the best on best, and you saw Jason, the 12 years was worth the wait, just for that game.
I am going to say this though, and maybe you're going to disagree with me. And I know during the broadcast they talked about this, and they're like, "Oh, if they play a 7-game series, it goes 7." If Sidney Crosby's playing, I know he's 38-year-old Sidney Crosby, whatever. If Sidney Crosby's playing in that game, and those two teams play 7 times, Canada's winning 5 of them based on what I saw. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I don't think. Well, no. Here's why. Because the entire tournament, what was one of Canada's flaws, and it came up in the game on Sunday, they couldn't score 5-on-5.
It's amazing.
They didn't do anything 5-on-5. So yeah, they get a lot of volume. Yeah, Hellebuck was great. But if you watch them, there was a couple of like the save on Taves when he leads his stick back and he stops that puck. Like, that's going to be an image that people are going to remember forever. Like, that's one of the all-time saves.
Remember Celebrini missing open nets from 15 feet out, though, too.
Yeah. So, would I think that the U.S. would win 4 out of 7 straight? No. But there was, like, Nathan McKinnon wasn't great 5-on-5. He wasn't. No, Jason, I think it would be 4-3. and you can flip a coin.
Really?
Because again, it's not much. Yeah, I just think so. I just think that they dominated. But the chemistry on the U.S. team and their special teams and the 5-on-3 penalty kill, I think they had the right team. They put it together. Yes, to your point, more skill on Canada, but the better team put together was the U.S.
Amazing. And hats off to USA Hockey for the way they put it together, and it really was terrific. Listen, let's hold this over because I want to ask you about the women's team, and I also want to get into sort of the second half of this season, not the second half of the season, but the stretch run of the season with Dennis Bernstein, who's hanging out with us, does a great job. TheFourthPeriod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. Team USA wins gold for the first time since 1980, 2-1 in overtime. They beat Canada, but there's more to get to from hockey, and we'll do it next. Dennis Bernstein of TheFourthPeriod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio hangs out with us. We usually have him on later in the week, but I said we got to talk to you now. It's the amazing Olympics that just wrapped up. And hockey, I hate to say it, but hockey really carried. At least for me as a U.S. fan, it feels like, Dennis, hockey really carried these Olympic Games.
No question. Jason, it was both games were 2-1 overtime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Women and men.
And then, well, even the semis, too, where you get Canada beating Czechia, in an overtime game, and then the U.S. beating Sweden in that overtime game, and Quinn Hughes scores the overtime goal in that game. Great days for the Hughes brothers. So, I know the men are going to obviously get a lot more of the publicity, but what the women did cannot be overstated. And Canada played them so tough in that championship game. What does it say about U.S. hockey as a whole, both on the men's and women's side, just to kind of put a bow on it from an Olympic standpoint?
It's about to eclipse Canada, and because we have 335 million people in this country, and the women's registration, I think over the last 4 or 5 years is up 65%. Like you see Abby Murphy, you see the GOAT Hillary Knight, and again, like the Macklin Celebrinis of the world and the Jack Hughes of the world, the little girls growing up want to see the Olympics and they want to be these girls. And there's the registrations all through the roof. It's just sheer numbers, Jason. Like if you get enough ice surfaces, the biggest challenge back in the day was there wasn't any ice surfaces for kids to skate on. Now there is. And not only that, the college system in the U.S. has made a huge difference. I'm old enough to remember, Jason, if you played college hockey, you weren't playing in the pros. Now it's the minor league system. That's changed the paradigm. And you have all these great programs here in the U.S. that play. It's about, I think there's a tipping point here. And the women's, you're right. The goal differential for the women was 32-2. But I give Canada credit. They said, okay, the round robin's one thing, right? The gold medal game's another thing. The goaltender was tremendous. They easily could have won the game, but you could see what USA Hockey is building towards. And it's because there's going to be another Austin Matthews. There's going to be another Jack Hughes. There's going to be another Connor Hellebuyck. I think just the sheer numbers of our population in this country, it's already a force, right? We already won the Olympics for the first time in a very long time. I think the trend continues that way.
How does this translate now? What is the carryover effect, if any, from this into the NHL? I mean, it's wild to me that you got, Connor Hellebuyck, who goes back to playing in the NHL in Canada, for a Winnipeg team. I mean, it's wild the way that everybody just has to kind of reassimilate themselves so quickly too. There's not a long break here and jump right back into it. What is the challenge that some of these guys face here?
Well, I think some of the challenges are the physical aspects. Because look, Victor Hedman didn't play in the Sweden elimination game. Is he going to play for Tampa Bay while they're trying to win a division title? Like Josh Morrissey got hurt for Winnipeg, although they're out of it right now. Like what's going to happen with Sidney Crosby?
That's the one.
If he doesn't play the gold medal game, like they're in second place in the Metro Division, what happens to them? Like how long is he going to be out? So that and Jason, we talked about the condensed schedule coming into the Olympics. Well, guess what? It's just as bad coming out. You look at the calendar in March for these teams, like the Kings. They play 3 games in 4 nights coming out of the break. And like Vegas had 5 guys in there in the Olympics. Are they going to play on Wednesday here in Los Angeles? Like, how do you manage that? So I think a lot of this is going to be a battle of attrition. Like health is good. I think primarily it's going to be the health because you've got teams playing a ton of games here in March. It's going to be, I said early in the season, Jason, because of the schedule, a season like no other, and now even more so because what's going to be the impact of players and teams that have multiple players playing in the Olympics? Now they're going to fly back cross country. Maybe they get jammed up with the weather on the East Coast. It's going to be very interesting to see which team's the healthiest coming down the stretch.
I mean, are you basically making decisions based on where you are in the standings, though? I mean, if you're Vegas, you're probably resting those guys, aren't you? I mean, you're in at least a comfortable enough spot standings-wise. You don't need to have them out there on Wednesday night, do you?
Yeah, you wouldn't. And when I was in L.A. yesterday talking to Jim Hiller about Drew Dowdy, he said, well, I got to have a conversation with Drew. Like, because he played 8 minutes in the gold medal game. He should be able to come back and play on Wednesday. I think you have to have separate conversations because, I agree with you resting, but, I know guys like Mark Stone. Mark Stone don't want to rest, Jason, ever. He wants to play. These guys want to play, Jason. That's what makes them a breed apart. They just want to play. Like, no, I'm good. I had a night's sleep. I'm ready to go. I'll rest in June. I'll rest in July. So you would think they would rest, but it's, Jason, when's their load management in the NHL? It's non-existent. These players play. So I agree with you that they should probably, from a health standpoint, but it's probably going to be like one game, and then they'll go back at it.
What's the storyline here over the last 25, 30 games that sort of intrigues you the most?
It's wide open. And I told you early in the season when Colorado was crushing everybody, it was one team and 31 teams. Nope. It's probably around 8 teams that could win the title. Like the 3 in the Central, Tampa Bay, Vegas, I don't think Edmonton, but I think it's much more wide open. So I think coming out of the break, Colorado was 4-5-1 going into the break. Were they bored? Were they lacking energy? Like, I want to see how that team responds because they clearly on paper is the best team, but they've got, if Minnesota makes a trade for a center, they're going to be right there because so what Quinn Hughes did in the Olympics. So it's much tighter. I mean, the East is the Eastern Conference. Who knows what's going to come out? I think Tampa's the favorite, but there's probably 3 or 4 teams that could come out. So I think with respect to just again, it's like the Olympics, Jason. There's no margins anymore in this sport. There's so many great players that you can have a team, even though Colorado's a favorite, that could wind up winning a Stanley Cup in June.
Dennis Bernstein does a great job. TheFourthPeriod.com, SiriusXM, NHL Radio as well. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Monday.
Likewise, JP. Thanks for the time.
And the NHL kicks back into gear with 8 games on Wednesday as, again, we start to head towards that stretch run, final 30 games or so of the regular season. It's going to be fantastic. All right, let's switch gears, talk some college basketball. My man Bill Bender does a great job with the Sporting News. We usually talk to him throughout the college football season, but he also writes college basketball stuff for Sporting News as well. He's got his latest bracketology coming out today. Go over to the Sporting News to check that out. Huge weekend. Lots of upsets in the last week. Again, I was texting him last week because he had Creighton beating UConn. I mean, Creighton's a 500 team. They go into Gamble Pavilion and beat UConn last week. I want to get his thoughts on that. What does it mean for the Huskies as far as the 1 line versus the 2 line? When we talk about seeding in the NCAA tournament, can the Huskies still wind up a 1 seed? Obviously, they probably could. But the big story from the weekend was Michigan and Duke. Number 1 versus number 3, and Duke getting the win against number 1 Michigan. How does that enhance both of those teams? They're probably both still number 1 seeds. Get his thoughts on that. And a whole bunch more as we continue. Still Jerry Bonkowski to come later in the show to talk NASCAR as well, with Tyler Reddick winning for the 2nd straight week to start the NASCAR season. A lot more to do on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Every Monday here on Sports Wrap, we talk college basketball, and we bring in this guy to do it. The great Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Talks about college football during football season, then he switches over and does the college basketball because he is a man of all seasons. And that season, apparently, everywhere east of the Mississippi is snow right now, so I'm sorry for you guys that are dealing with the weather out there. So, this Duke win over Michigan, give me sort of, the headline as to what stands out to you from that win for Duke.
They showed if you're going to beat Michigan, you hold them under 70 points. And I would anticipate some teams, whether it be in the rest of the Big Ten season or tournament play, to try to mimic that, prove that John Shire is one of the best coaches in the game. I think Boozer took that game over late. Was it a goaltend? Was it not? Kind of irrelevant to the outcome of the game, honestly. I know it was a big play, but Duke was in control of that game for most of the second half anyway, and they'll probably bump up to number 1. Michigan will be number 2. Maybe we see that game again, and you go from there.
Yeah, I don't think it obviously it doesn't impact much from a seeding standpoint, but what does it show just in terms of, if there are teams out there that we're looking at this Michigan team is, there was a time this season where it felt like a lot of people were looking at Michigan as inevitable. Is it just figuring, in a sports landscape where there's so many copycat sort of acts out there, is it easy? I mean, you have to have players, but can you emulate what Duke did if you're some of these other teams?
You can try. I mean, it's still, that was just a high level basketball game. That
it really
felt
was.
Like a Final Four semifinal. So yeah, you can say, yeah, we'll just hold the ball and try to limit Michigan to 70 points. And that just might not work. I think when you say Michigan is inevitable, to me, it says, well, you send in the latest bracketology. Well, there's a lot of Big 12 teams that could maybe do this. I think UConn and St. John's are being a little undervalued. They'll play Wednesday night in an instant classic, I'm sure, and both of those teams are highly capable of winning it. Duke, obviously, very good. So I think we're a long way. Yeah, there's a team that might get that number 1 overall seed. It's probably Duke right now. You can't tell me there aren't more than 10 teams that can't win this thing.
You mentioned UConn, so let me bring them up. The loss to Creighton, I texted you then, and I said, what the hell is happening here? Creighton's a 500 team. Now, they were supposed to be pretty good preseason. I think they were a top 25, sort of preseason team. But give me a sense, does that loss only temporarily knock UConn down to a 2? Because then if they beat St. John's, they're back to a 1. What does UConn have to do to be on that 1 line?
I mean, some people still have them on the 1 line, and we were talking about how well Creighton shot the ball the other night. And that's kind of my point I was making earlier is it's almost like UConn can't have that garden variety upset night that happens all the time in the Big Ten or the SEC or the ACC. St. John's almost isn't allowed to have that. St. John's was 31-5 last year, and they were a 2 seed. So in my bracketology, I tend to give UConn and St. John's the benefit of the doubt, and I'm wrong when the bracket comes out. And it irritates me because I'm like, it's more about the team than the conference in that respect. You don't think UConn could go out and be a number 1 seed in the Big Ten or St. John's? They would probably have a few more bruises, but it doesn't mean it's just like they can't have 1 quad 3 loss. It's ridiculous.
Is there a top 10 team that we're sleeping on right now?
I mean, I like Iowa State a lot.
I was that was exactly the team I was looking at when I thought about that question.
Well, and then the other one I'll say is Florida. Like Florida's a 3 seed in some of these brackets. I think they're more of a number 2. They're playing really good basketball. I'll take it down to a number 4 to watch out for is Alabama. The Bediako situation. Every time you talk about Alabama, Bediako's name comes up. Well, he's gone and they've won 6 in a row and they're scoring a ton of points. And we've seen that type of basketball have success in the tournament. So maybe Alabama, maybe Iowa State, Florida. Those are kind of 3 teams I've been looking at.
How about North Carolina?
Well, I mean, it's life after Caleb Wilson, and they're making that adjustment. Bad loss against NC State, obviously, but it's going to get real for them over the next couple weeks. They've got a tough week this week, couple home games, and then the season finale against Duke. So that's just one. It's hard to gauge because when you lose a player like Caleb Wilson, of course, there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period.
What will you do with a team like Miami in your and I'm curious to know where you have them right now in your bracketology with an undefeated team like Miami coming from the conference they come from. What do you do with a team like Miami if you're the selection committee?
What they normally do with a MAC team? Well, number 1, this is playing out that they go undefeated or win the MAC. They're probably going to be a 10 seed, which is a little low for me.
They're going to be undefeated and be a 10 seed.
Well, it's just based on that team that Wally Zerbiak played on was a 10 seed. That
was a zillion years ago, though. College basketball is different. There's way more parity. There's a lot better players that slip down into these conferences.
It might be, but the way that they treat my Mid-American Conference is not different.
I'm just saying it's not right. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm saying it's not right.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying like that Kent State team that went to the Elite Eight, they were a 10 seed. So my opinion is that Miami should be about a 7.
Okay.
So, but would they put them at 7? No. My other opinion, and I think St. Louis qualifies here, they could be teams that you're rooting for to win their conference if you're on the bubble, because I think the MAC should have two bids at that point. If Miami were to lose in the MAC tournament with like a 30-1 record, I think St. Louis probably gets in the tournament at 30-2 if they lose, or it'd be 30-3. I mean, but we've seen this before with those conferences. Miami's strength of schedule is not great, but man, they've got guys that can shoot the basketball.
Unfortunately, I'm out of time. I don't have time to get to it here, but I want to get to the Mick Cronin stuff from UCLA, the outburst last week. Check our YouTube channel, SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. We'll throw in a bonus question there and have it on the YouTube channel with our friend, the great Bill Bender. Bill Bender, check out his bracketology over at the Sporting News. He does a great job, so go and support his work. I always appreciate you, my friend. Be well. Have a great week.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, coming up in 10 minutes, a special edition of Odds and Ends that has nothing to do with sports at all, but I promise every single person that watches it will be able to relate to it and understand it. That's coming up. Let's talk some NASCAR. Guess it's a repeat for Tyler Reddick. Who saw that coming? Jerry Bonkowski, EssentiallySports.com, does a great job on NASCAR, longtime NASCAR writer and journalist, hangs out with us. Man, another wild finish, and Tyler Reddick in the winner's circle for the second straight race. Jerry, what stood out to you from the finish of this thing? It looked wild.
Tyler Reddick is for real. I mean, that's the biggest thing, first of all. I mean, here's a guy that he had won at least 2 races in 2022, 23, and 24. Was 0 races won last year, and now he's won the first 2 races, and he's on the verge of history. If he can win this coming weekend, he'll be the first driver in NASCAR history to ever win 3 in a row to start a season. So, I mean, as everybody's been saying, he came out of nowhere at the end. I mean, it was such a wild, crazy finish, but, Tyler Reddick is an extremely talented driver. There's no question about it. And I think that going forward, he is going to be a definite contender this year. I mean, you don't always want to say, well, he won the Daytona 500, he's going to be a championship contender. It doesn't always work that way. But when you win the first 2 races, one on a plate track, one on a very high-speed super speedway, that tells me something. So I like what I see in him. But the other story that I think that is very key, and not a lot of people are talking about this, actually 2 stories real quick, Jason, is number one, his teammate, Bubba Wallace. Bubba's doing very, very well in the first 2 races. It's like all of a sudden he knows how to drive. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but he has really impressed me. And excuse me, the other guy that's impressed me is Daniel Suarez. New season, new team, Spire Motorsports. He's had 2 top 10 finishes. I like what I'm seeing so far in these first 2 races, Jason.
It's not difficult to argue that Bubba Wallace had the best car yesterday, is it?
I agree with you. And, Bubba, he's been a conundrum. I mean, he's got the talent, he's got the equipment, he's got the car. Even though he said constantly last year that the whole lawsuit thing didn't bother him, I'm just of the belief that it was bothering him. Now that thing's all gone, it's all history. Everybody's happy. Everybody's settled. Now he can focus on what he does best. I mean, he did win at the Brickyard last year, which obviously was the biggest race win of his career. But I think this is a guy who could also make some serious noise this year too. It's just like the entire 23XI team, along with Riley Herbst, they're for real in my opinion.
Talk to me. It's funny. They're making a sequel to Days of Thunder, which every time it's on, I always turn it on. It's one of my favorite movies. I really do. It's one of those. There's a few movies that whenever they come on, I always have to watch. It feels like Carson Hocevar is like the real life Cole Trickle here. Like what? my goodness. I mean, you watch this guy out there, and again, he's got so much talent. At some point, you got to think it's going to click a little for him that. There's got to be a moment where you pull back a little bit, but that moment just doesn't seem to be there yet with Carson Hocevar, does it?
He has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that he has to learn to control himself. That's the number one thing, and he has not learned that. I mean, obviously, you chalked it up to his his youthfulness and that kind of thing. But I mean, one of the best ways to be an ex NASCAR driver or to lose your ride is to be what he's doing right now. So he's got to get himself, on the right side of the ledger, so to speak. Again, he's got a lot of talent, like you said, but you have to really control that talent. You just can't, think that you're going to knock everybody out of the way and you're going to, barrel right on through. You've got to, pick your places. You have to have respect for your fellow drivers, because if you don't have respect for them, they're certainly not going to have respect for you either.
What is this early season sort of success for 23XI and Michael Jordan? What is it? What does it do from a sponsorship standpoint? What does it do from a just sort of galvanizing? We've talked about what it's done in terms of galvanizing sport last week with them winning Daytona. I mean, just try and give me a sense, because it's a long season, Jerry. 2 months from now, 3 months from now, if Tyler Reddick or Bubba Wallace don't win another race, we've already moved on and we're on to the next thing, and whoever's hot at that stage of the season. This kind of success early in the season, what does it mean?
Well, I think if you look at a couple of things, number one, you have Michael Jordan. Nobody else has Michael Jordan. And with that legacy of him as a basketball player, a Hall of Famer, and now as a major NASCAR team owner, co-owner, that's not something that nobody else can talk about. And, if you're a potential NASCAR sponsor, and I'm not going to say this in a bad way, I'm not going to mention any other names, but Would you rather want to be with owner A, or would you rather be with owner B, who's Michael Jordan? That's not even that's not even the point. I mean, if you can afford to be a sponsor of Jordan's team, you're going to be there, and especially with the success they're having. So, Michael is the number one thing. Number two is, Reddick is very young still. I think, what is he, 30, 31, I think he is. Still got a long career ahead of him. Bubba seems like he's finally got things straightened out. Again, that'll remain to be seen. He's got 34 more races to go. But I mean, right now they're clicking on all cylinders, which they have never done. I mean, they've won, I think, a total of 4 or 5 races in the team over the. No, I take it back. It's been more races than that. It's probably been about more like 8 or 9, I think, if I'm not mistaken, since they formed back in 2020 or 2021. But they're clicking on all cylinders now. That's a very big thing for them. And, success breeds success. I'm very convinced that, let's see how they're going to do in the road course at COTA. Let's see how they're going to do in the short tracks like Bristol. And if they are still doing well, they're for real, for sure.
Well, let's be honest. Do we have to? It's Shane Van Gisbergen and Shane Van Gisbergen this week, isn't it? I mean, do I even have to watch?
I'll make a bet with you on this one. Shane Van Gisbergen does not win COTA.
Jerry Bonkowski, EssentiallySports.com, does a great job on NASCAR. Thank you, my friend. Have a great week.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk to you next week about Bubba and Tyler Reddick as well. Again, winning.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. I said I had something personal to discuss, and it has nothing to do with sports, so I'll warn you all in advance. I always pride myself on keeping it real with our audience. I always said when I left the world of journalism to become a talk show host 20 some odd years ago, I always promised myself that I would be my most authentic self. And that includes being honest with my audience. And last week, while I was here and while we did shows, I wasn't mentally here. I was dealing with something very difficult. Our dog, Dookie, had become very sick over the last couple of weeks. And we lost him over the weekend, my husband and I. And he passed away peacefully on Saturday morning. And I won't be able to get through this entire segment just talking about him, so I decided to put something together to tell you a little bit about this animal that was so special and so important in my life. I've always been a firm believer in the idea that we don't choose our dogs, that our dogs choose us. That belief has never been stronger after the joys of 13 and a half years with Dookie. He was the dog nobody wanted, a abandoned in Brooklyn, New York during Superstorm Sandy in 2012. I took him in as a foster right off the street. I already had a 7-year-old French bulldog named Mr. Thor at that time. That was practically too much for me to handle then. Everybody my partner and I gave him to, gave him right back. He was the proverbial boomerang dog. After a year of bouncing to and from our old warehouse loft, we unexpectedly lost our French bulldog, Mr. Thor. He was gone after just 8 years. And that was when I learned why Dookie chose us. Losing a dog is painful, but Dookie made losing Mr. Thor just a little more bearable. Our Frenchie was incredibly independent, in need or want for anything. Dookie was the polar opposite. He was dependent on his humans in every way possible. After being abandoned during Superstorm Sandy, he had the worst separation anxiety imaginable. It was sometimes unbearable. It was so bad that I moved my nationally syndicated overnight sports radio show from the studios in Midtown Manhattan to a specially designed studio in my apartment. And this was at a time where that wasn't common. That was what Dookie needed. So that's what I did. And every night, that dog stayed by my side as I broadcast from home, the gentle sighs emanating from the corner where he sat, letting me know he was at peace. I've often told people that Dookie was the most stable thing in my life for the 13 plus years that I had him. Sports radio gigs, they came and went. Even the guy that wound up being the man I call my husband today had to go for a period of time. But Dookie was always there. And his expectations stayed the same. Feed me, play with me, don't leave my side. There for 5 cross-country drives. New York to California and back, waiting for me after months-long trips to Singapore to see Chum. Making new friends and adopting new uncles every step of the way, becoming a local celebrity everywhere he went. I often joked my dog had become more of a local celebrity than I could ever be. And somewhere along the way, our dynamic had started to change. He was no longer the dog that was dependent on me. We were an inseparable pair, now dependent on each other. No matter how much my husband and I talked about the eventuality of Dookie one day leaving us, nothing can prepare you for the kind of pain that a dog's passing comes with. 14 days ago, Dookie and I were throwing the ball around as we always did. He'd make his Superman leaps, and I'd marvel at his 15-year-old dog doing things 15-year-old dogs shouldn't be able to do. 2 weeks later, he was lying in my lap, looking me in the eyes and telling me that it was time to let him go. His passing was at the same time agonizingly painful for me, yet incredibly peaceful. No euthanasia. He fought. God, did he fight. He fought what we would later find out to be a brain tumor for 2 weeks until he could fight no more. I'm not a particularly religious man. I have no idea what comes after this. But I've never believed more strongly that there has to be something. Because that something has to include a chance for me to see my baby boy one more time and feel that warmth and unconditional love that gave me great joy for so many years. Even if it does come with this profound sadness that I'm dealing with right now after watching him take his final breath. Your daddies love you, Papa Dukes. Safe journey over that rainbow bridge. That'll do it for us. Thanks to everybody who's reached out on social media over the last couple of days. It's appreciated. Give your dog a big hug for me, because we don't have him forever. That is Sports Wrap on this Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow.